It was raining hard that night, the kind of cold, merciless rain that soaks through your bones and washes away every ounce of pride you thought you had left. In the dim glow of a flickering gas station light, a weary man in a torn jacket stared at the last $2 he had in the world. His hands were trembling, not from the cold, but from the crushing weight of what those $2 meant. They weren't just paper. They were dinner for his little girl. They were hope, fragile, desperate hope, and yet, when he saw that biker struggling at the edge of the lot, pushing a Harley that had clearly given up on him miles ago, the veteran didn't hesitate. He didn't ask for anything. He just walked over and gave away the last $2 he had. He had no idea that act of kindness would set off a chain of events that would change his life forever. Before we continue, if this story already touched your heart, take a second to hit that like button, drop a comment with a for kindness, and subscribe to Soul Spark for more true stories that restore your faith in humanity. The man's name was Jake Turner, a 38-year-old single dad and an Army veteran who had served 2 tours overseas. When he came home, the war didn't end, it just moved inside his head. PTSD, job loss, and a wife who couldn't handle the broken version of the man who returned. She left 3 years ago, taking everything except the only thing that mattered, their daughter, Lily. Jake was raising Lily alone in a rundown trailer park on the outskirts of Nashville. Every morning, he'd wake before dawn, pack her lunch with whatever they had left, and send her off to school with a smile that masked the storm inside him. But smiles don't pay rent. And by the end of that week, Jake was broke. Completely broke. He'd been laid off from his security job when the company downsized. His truck had been repossessed. His bank account read negative $23. The only thing he had left was a few crumpled bills in his jacket pocket. $2. Enough to buy Lily a small carton of milk and maybe a pack of instant noodles. He was walking back from the gas station that night when he saw the biker. The man was tall, with a thick leather jacket soaked through, his beard dripping rainwater as he tried to push his bike under the awning. His gas tank was bone dry, and the nearest station was closed. Jake paused. He could have walked right past. God knows, life had been cruel enough to him lately. No one would have blamed him for keeping those last $2. But that wasn't who Jake was. He walked up quietly, his boots sloshing in puddles. "Need some help?" he asked. The biker looked up, surprised. "Yeah," he said, almost embarrassed. "Ran out of gas. My buddy's on his way, but it might be an hour." The Jake glanced at the small jerrycan strapped to the back of the bike. "Tell you what," he said. "Station across the street's got a pump that takes cash. I've got a couple bucks. Won't fill your tank, but it'll get you moving." The biker's eyes widened. "Man, I can't take your money." Jake just smiled, handing him the bills. "Ain't charity. It's what we do for each other out here." The biker hesitated, then took the money with a quiet nod. "You're a good man," he said softly. "What's your name?" "Jake," he replied. "Just Jake. I'm Ridge," the biker said. "I owe you one, brother." The Jake shrugged. "Just pay it forward." And with that, he turned and walked back into the rain, not knowing those $2 had just bought him far more than gasoline. The next morning, Jake woke to the sound of his daughter coughing. The trailer was cold, their electricity had been cut off 2 days ago. He wrapped her in a blanket, made her some lukewarm instant oatmeal, and promised her everything would be okay, even though he had no idea how. After dropping her off at school, he went to the local hardware store looking for day labor. But no one was hiring. He walked for hours, asking every store, every construction site, until his feet ached. By sunset, he was back at the trailer staring at the past due rent notice taped to the door. Final Warinji, he sat on the steps, buried his face in his hands, and let the tears fall, silent, heavy, and hidden behind the dusk. He'd fought in a war. He'd seen men die in his arms. But this quiet battle for survival was breaking him. He whispered into the cold, "God, I'm trying so hard." That's when he heard it, a low rumble, then another. At first, he thought it was thunder, but as the sound grew louder it became clear. This wasn't the sky, it was the road. Within minutes, the sound was deafening. The ground trembled. Jake stood, shielding his eyes from the glare of dozens of headlights cresting over the hill. And then they came. Hundreds of motorcycles roaring down the street, one after another, filling the road like a wave of chrome and thunder. They slowed as they reached his trailer park, pulling up in formation until the entire block was lined with bikes. Jake's jaw dropped. "What the hell?" he muttered. One of the riders stepped forward. It was Ridge, the same man from the gas station. He took off his helmet, a broad grin spreading across his face. "Told you I owed you one," Ridge said. "Turns out you helped the president of the Iron Brotherhood Motorcycle Club. And when my brothers heard what you did last night, giving your last $2 to help a stranger, well, they figured it was time someone helped you for a change." Jake blinked, speechless. I don't understand." Ridge clapped him on the shoulder. "You will." He turned to his crew and raised his hand. "Let's show this man what brotherhood looks like." What happened next felt like a dream. Half the riders dismounted and started unloading supplies, boxes of food, tools, propane tanks, toys, winter clothes. Another group set up a generator and ran a line into Jake's trailer to power the lights and heater. Jake stood frozen as more bikes arrived, each one carrying something. One man handed him an envelope stuffed with cash. Another fixed the broken steps of his trailer. Someone else was painting the front door, while another installed a new mailbox with "Turner Family" written across it. Lily came running out of the school bus that had just pulled up, her eyes wide as she saw the sea of motorcycles in front of her home. "Daddy," she cried, "what's happening?" Jake lifted her into his arms, tears streaming down his cheeks. Sweetheart, I think this is what happens when kindness comes back around." The bikers stayed for hours, fixing, repairing, and laughing. Ridge organized a fundraiser among the biker community. By sunset, they'd raised enough to pay Jake's rent for a year, get his truck back, and even set him up with a job at a veteran-owned motorcycle repair shop. Before they left, Ridge hugged him tight and whispered, "You fought for this country, brother. It's time someone fought for you." Jake couldn't speak. He just nodded, his throat too tight to say thank you. That night, after the bikers left and Lily was asleep, Jake stepped outside and looked up at the stars. For the first time in years, the silence didn't feel empty. It felt peaceful. He remembered his father's words before he went off to war. "Son, a man's true worth ain't in what he keeps, it's in what he gives when he has nothing left." Jake smiled, realizing those $2, those two small, wrinkled bills, had been the most valuable thing he'd ever owned. If this story moved you, take a moment to like, share, and subscribe to Soul Spark. Let's spread stories that remind the world that kindness still exists, and sometimes the smallest act can create the loudest echo. Weeks later, Jake started his new job at Ridge's shop. The two became close friends, and the Iron Brotherhood often dropped by to check on him and Lily. The bikers even took her for rides around the block, her laughter echoing through the neighborhood. And every payday, Jake set aside $2 in a small jar labeled, "For the next stranger." Because he knew now, what you give away when you have nothing left is what truly defines you. And sometimes, one small act of kindness can roar louder than 1,000 engines.